Welcome back to Murray Max. I got a video here that's a little bit different. I like to just kind of, if there's a video that I see on YouTube and I can review it, then I just kind of pick it out. And some of this stuff gets mixed in with, it's like my algorithm. So Myron has some entertaining content a lot of the times. He says stuff that I wouldn't want to play around my mother. And he also says stuff that makes me laugh and everything in between. So let's take a look at this one. The context of this is how society lies to women about feminism. And like always, I haven't watched it yet, so we're going to watch it together. Feel free to tell me in the comments what you think of this.
Significantly harder.
Hi.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
A little bit. You might have to move the mic down for her, guys.
No, I got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's all the way down. Damn. The struggles of being 5 foot nothing. Anyway, what's your name?
Myron, nice to meet you.
Byron? Okay, cool.
Myron, yeah.
What is? Sorry.
Myron.
Myron, gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Ozzy.
Okay. How are you,
Sorry.
Ozzy?
I have no clue who you are. So this
No
is
problem.
very interesting. So I have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
I noticed that you keep up bringing up the nuclear family,
Yeah.
right? So you talk about valuing the nuclear family, and I'm trying to ask you why. So like if you
Why?
could like,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
very
Yeah, so the
clearly-
reason
Is it just me, or does it bother you when people say nuclear family instead of nuclear? I don't know, just me.
why is
Explain
because children are the future. And in order to raise children properly, you need a mom and a dad. You need that balance. And that can only really be done in a nuclear family. This is why I'm not a fan of gays adopting or lesbians adopting. I think, the child needs to have a strong father and a mother in the household for the best chance at being a productive member of society. That's why the nuclear family is so important, because our future is built on that, which are the children.
Okay. And then going to then the patriarchy.
The patriarchy, okay?
Yeah.
What about it?
So you're talking about how like you value it and you find it good that men are then forced to go out and do these things. So you're talking about kind of like the men's rights issues, right?
Yes, I think there's a burden of performance on us. And I think that that's something to embrace and rise to versus trying to be equal to women.
Okay, so you believe that men should not have a choice.
As far as in what regard? Working?
Not just working, but just style of life and like, so taking away that choice from men and just generally from people of like their direction in life.
I think every guy should be prioritizing, whether they're building themselves up to eventually have a family, right? I understand that, for men, it takes time for us to acquire our value versus women kind of have the value up front. But I do think that every guy should be striving to become successful so that eventually a family will be dependent upon him.
Okay.
I heard a good analogy, and there's many out there, but someone was describing it as a woman is born on top of a mountain and her job is to not fall down it, and a man is born at the base of a mountain and his job is to climb it.
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I don't think women should be working. I think they should be prioritizing motherhood, not jobs.
So taking our society and the amount of people that it takes to run a fully functioning, well-endowed society, that takes people of all kinds of creed, right?
Sure.
So when you take away that matter of choice from both men and women and everyone in between, why do you then believe that that will be a better society?
Well, the thing is this, right? So you're mentioning this thing about choice, and I think that's an illusion, right? And we need to be honest here when it comes to women pursuing education and a career. What we tell them is, hey, look, go get a job, make money, enter the workforce, and then you can have a family at the end of that. And what ends up happening a lot of times is women follow this route, get an education, get money, get a job, get a good career, and then when they try to find a guy at the end of that, it becomes significantly harder. Because what's ended up happening is the woman has risen up in status, risen up in her income, and her standards are higher, so a lot of guys aren't going to qualify. And I think if we were honest with women and told them, look, if you pursue a career, there's a very good chance that you might not get your first choice. I think that's a good starting point. Obviously, we can't just say, take all the jobs and that's it. But I think we need to start being more honest with women and letting them understand that you got to pick one. You can't.
There's also the biological factor of that. A man can easily impregnate a woman if he's even in his 50s or whatever. But, there is a different biological clock for fertility and things when it comes to women. And I feel like we're so soft in our culture now that if you even try to mention that a woman has kind of like a certain timeline that gets reduced with age, that you're seeing, of course, will be labeled as misogynistic or whatever. But I mean, it's like the same party that says believe in science and trust science will freak out if you say anything like that, even though it's based in science.
Really have it all. And this is something that we've been lying to women about for decades, that they can have it all. And then they end up at 31 years old, unmarried, no kids, wondering why guys don't take them seriously. But it's because they didn't know the truth about this stuff.
So then how do you feel about the same thing, but then happening towards men? Like,
in what regard?
Take you, for example. You say that you have, I think you mentioned you have an open relationship, but specifically on your end.
Only on my end, yeah.
So you take the nuclear family, which is a loyal and faithful husband.
Only women could be sluts. We are the slut makers. This girl's over here trying to call me a slut. Hey, we're the slut makers, man. There's no such thing as a man that's a slut.
Also, if modern women like the ones that are shouting at him, if they don't think there's anything wrong with being a slut, or if they don't think, if it's like they even have slut walks and stuff like that, and they act like it's empowerment and stuff, why do they always throw the term around as an insult? If it's something to be so proud of, why is it always an insult that you use to try and, demean somebody?
May I continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So you're talking about how you have an open relationship. So you have the nuclear family.
Yep.
The stereotypical nuclear family is a loyal working husband who goes to the office or whatever, makes money, comes home to his wife, provides for his wife, takes care of his wife. You value highly the nuclear family, but you yourself are not taking a part of it. Why is that?
Well, I have a certain goal that I want to hit financially before I, go ahead and have a family. Some business aspirations, and I want to make sure I get that out of the way so that when it is time to be a father, I can focus 100% on that and not necessarily be as tied up with work. So and that's kind of one of the, the good things about being a man is that though we are not born with value, if we work hard enough, we can create value, and that gives us a bit more time on the time clock. Versus for women, they have a fairly finite amount of time to be able to build a family. So for me, I'm focused on hitting a certain financial goal first so that when I do have my children, money never becomes a problem again.
It's a fair question for her to ask, and it's a fair answer for him to give. A man can work until he's, in his 40s or whatever, and when he's financially stable, and then start a family. I personally, just my personal opinion, I wouldn't recommend it because you're just that much more detached from things that you can relate with to your kids. And this is me speaking as a father who had kids when I was younger. It's like when my son was, 5, 10, 15 years old, we always could relate very well. We're still very close. We always have been. And that's partly due to the fact that it's like, I knew about the video games that he wanted to play. I knew about the movies he wanted to watch. I would go play sports with him instead of being too old. I had a friend when I was in high school, in our high school graduation, his dad was like 76 or 78 years old or something like that. It's like, what do you talk to your dad about? Like, trains and moon pies and penny whistles? I just don't understand I understand what Myron's saying, but when people go really late in life before they have kids, I don't understand that. But, to each their own. To her question, though, what Myron is doing in his life doesn't work against having a nuclear family. It's him actually setting up a base to be able to provide better for his future nuclear family, because I don't know how old Myron is. If I had to guess, I don't know much about his personal life or anything. I would say that he's probably like in his 30s somewhere. He's got a little bit of gray, but, it's not a lot of gray. I think that maybe he's like 35 or something like that. So even if he works for 5 more years before starting a family, he can still father 5 to 10 kids if he really wanted to, So it's like, but someone on the other side, a female, they can't just be, 45 years old and just easily be having more kids. The chances of birth defects go up, the chances of failed pregnancy, the chances of inability to become pregnant, they all go up higher, especially in the United States with some of these chemicals and the diets and stuff that we have that hinder our bodies. But anyways, let me know in the comments what you think about that.
But you talk about how women are born with an inherent value.
Yes.
I would differ that men are as well. And what you are doing, so the nuclear family, part of men's value comes from being loyal and being hardworking. And I feel like when you miss half of that, like what you're doing, you are then degrading and, sorry, not degrading, harming, degrading, thank you, whoever said that, the nuclear family and the idea of this, because you take this very almost shallow and kind of hollow, because every person has issues and the nuclear family is by no means perfect, and you are then kind of showing the issues with it by your own actions and by your own kind of disregard for.
Well, my thing is, I think, again, I teach guys, hey, look, this is what you need to do, right? This is how you become attractive, get your life together. Now, when I arm guys with these tools, what they choose to do it is up to them. If they want to go ahead and have a family immediately, that's fine. If they want to go ahead and play the field, that's fine. But my thing is, I want men to be in a position. The problem is that a lot of guys are in a relationship where their woman controls everything. She's making the decisions, she's bossing him around. There's no leadership there. I want the guy to be in a position where he can kind of dictate the terms. And if he decides, look, I want a family and I want to have a family early, I want him to do that through choice, not through necessity. A lot of guys are monogamous or in a relationship through necessity, not because they want to be. So I just want guys to be able to have that choice. That's the big thing. And then eventually, obviously, work towards a family. But I think the other thing, too, that's important is that men have to understand how modern women work.
4 minutes in the event. Thank you. My last question here is,
Sure.
What's your goal with coming out to this college campus where you have all of these people who very obviously are heckling you and do not want you to be here? What's your goal? Because obviously you're not really going to change people's minds with some of the more hateful messages that you're portraying. Like, why are you here?
To start a revolution, to tell people the truth, something that's been missing for a very long time.
You know, it's kind of interesting how these people on the campuses, whether it be Charlie Kirk or Cam Higbee or Myron Gaines, when they go to a campus, they always say, why are you here? What's the point of you like coming here and antagonizing people? And that's coming from the party of, we need 4,000 parades every year, and we need everything painted in rainbow, and we need everyone to take a knee for this to raise awareness. We need to raise awareness for this and that. And we need these plastered inside schools, and we need these commercials on TV, and we need police cars that have like these flags on them and all these different things to raise awareness. But then they see you speaking about something and they go, why are you here? Why would you be doing this? I don't understand why you would be here sharing your views with people. Obviously, the same reason everyone shares their views. You know, the same reason that I get on here and I speak and give reviews on stuff. A, because I want to, so I will. And B, you know, no one thinks the way they do until they actually do. And what I mean by that is, like, you know, when I was 15, I had a different thought process. When I was 18, I had a different thought process. I remember even when the first time around when I heard that Trump was going to be running for office, I didn't like the idea of it because I was a traditional, you know, in my views with politics and stuff. And I kind of thought at first, like, well, he's not a politician. Like, what's he doing in politics? I didn't like the idea. But then I started listening to stuff and looking into things and doing some research. And then there were some people that shared their views on it. And I thought, well, you know, that is a good point. You know, I do like that, though. And that policy does sound good. And, you know, let me make sure that's real first before I buy into this. And I looked into it. And, you know, just listening to other people's voices can open up your perspective. And there's even perspectives I listen to that I completely disagree with. But it also helps to listen to what they have to say so I can at least understand where they're coming from. Because there's this problem that we have with discourse in the United States where everything is so aggressive and combative. And, you know, you take the abortion topic for something and one side's going, you just want to control women. And the other side's going, you just want to kill babies. And it's like, well, that's never going to progress to productive dialogue because the person who's pro-choice doesn't believe that they're killing a baby. And the person who is pro-life is trying to save life and not just saying, oh, I don't like women and I don't want them to have any rights. Take them all away. Like, so the conversation goes nowhere. So if you kind of have an idea of even what someone with opposing views is going to say, it helps better you understand where they're coming from so you can at least humanize them when you're in a discussion with them and when you're considering them. But anyways, let me know in the comments what you think of this video and your thoughts on all this stuff. I'm going to keep pumping these out. Feel free to like and subscribe or don't because we all have free choice.